We don't have one of those sophisticated beepers?
Everyone's joining. I'm going to give it a minute or two. So I was just saying to the panelists that we had one panelist from Rwanda jump out because of technical issues with a gorilla naming ceremony, which is very cool, actually. I mean, not that they're having issues, but that they have a gorilla naming ceremony.
Very cool.
Yeah. Hi, Lemore. You're the best. Brooke, how are you? Oh, you're muted. Sorry. There you go.
Hi, I'm good.
Good.
Kicked my children out of the apartment entirely.
Oh, good.
Out on the streets?
They're not allowed to come back until 1:30 p.m. So
you should just do that every day.
We'll meet them another time, I guess.
They've done enough Zoom bombing from the past few months.
No.
Sure.
Can you all believe we're still on Zoom? We're still here. Okay, I'll give it 30 more seconds, I guess.
Yeah, especially since Tori left us.
Yeah, oh yeah.
There she is.
Back. Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. So thank you guys for being here today. I really appreciate it. As I was saying to Stefan earlier, he wins the award because he's in Hong Kong and it is 1:03 a.m. So thank you, but thank you all for being here. And I'll introduce you all in just a minute. But we do these calls monthly now and it continues to be a highlight. Although I really do miss conferences and human interaction, and many of you have told me the same thing. You know, I first wanted to say, I know many of us in the past weeks and months have traveled and hopefully did it responsibly and had a great time. But it continues to be just total whiplash in so many ways. You know, for me, I live in London and almost all of Europe was open to me in July as a resident here. And then within weeks, it started closing again. And now most of Europe is closed to us again, requiring that 14-day quarantine. So although recently the European Commission, which is the executive branch of the European Union, said that they support COVID-19 testing instead of quarantine, which I know all of us on this call agree with. And there's a lot of behind the scenes work happening there, of course, also in the US. I know a lot of us, all of us, feel deep responsibility to do what we can for the travel industry, because for us, it's not just the travel industry, right? It's our friends and it's people and jobs and friends and lives. And how do we lead by example and promote responsible travel and have a great time? And, you know, one of the things we're going to touch on today is actually travel shaming, which I think has been an interesting conversation over the past couple months and how we handle it in the months moving ahead. So our panel, I'll introduce alphabetically by last name. We have Tori Barnes in Washington, D.C., the Executive Vice President of Public Affairs and Policy for the U.S. Travel Association. Hi, Tori.
Annie.
We did have the Chief Tourism Officer of the Rwanda Development Board, but she had to cancel very last minute. So then we have Brooke Lavery, partner, owner, co-founder. I never know what to call you because you're all of the things at Local Foreigner, a very successful travel agency based in New York. And then I have Stefan Lieser, CEO of Langham Hotels based in Hong Kong.
Morning.
And then, of course, Greg Sullivan, AFAR's co-founder. So, Greg, I'll open with you. You know, at AFAR, we've been saying the new now instead of the new normal. Can you talk about the thinking behind that and why you and we are not calling it the new normal?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Laura Redmond, our digital content editor, came up with that in May, and I immediately latched onto it. I mean, you know, as you remember, when in May we were coming out of lockdown in the U.S. and people were really looking forward to getting back to normal. And you know, what normal meant to them was, you know, a world without COVID. But unfortunately, just because we were out of lockdown didn't mean the world was without COVID. And so we thought it was inappropriate to talk about, you know, especially in the world of travel, you know, maybe you can live in normal if you're in a world that doesn't allow people to leave and everybody stays put, but if you're going to have a transient world, you cannot pretend it's normal. You've got to live with testing. You've got to live with social distancing, with all the procedures we all know. And so we think that, and then by the way, that doesn't mean at least in my viewpoint, and I've been traveling a fair amount the last few months, you can have great experiences. You just got to be a responsible traveler to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you certainly have shown that firsthand. And you just got back from Rwanda, which we will touch on in a little bit, but that was your furthest trip, right?
Yeah.
A lot of California. So, and so let's touch on that travel shaming a little bit to start, because I know it's been a big conversation with a lot of people I've talked to. I think it's died down a little bit. But I do think that it will come back in the winter as cases get higher, or not. We'll see. But how do you guys handle that personally and professionally? And Brooke, I'll start with you. Like, do you want to post about your trips? Do your clients want to post about their trips? What are they thinking?
So I'm based in New York, and so a lot of our clients are here in the Northeast, and all throughout the states, we're dealing with a series of very complicated quarantine rules. You can't, if you're from the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, you cannot go to many other places and come back. So people are feeling pressure from their colleagues, their neighbors, their schools. And there's a lot of, layers of restrictions being put in place. We've had clients that have traveled, that have, said to us, we would love to post about this. I'm yearning to post about my trip to Amangiri, but I can't post about it. Or they post about it, kind of a few weeks later. So it's kind of ambiguous as to when they were there. People are very nervous about being accused or put into a position or ostracized in some level of their community based on where they've been. Is a reality right now.
And do you feel that way personally with trips, or do you feel it's different because you're kind of leading by example?
I'm here in New York, like every doctor's appointment you go to, every time I take my son to school, there's a questionnaire about, have you left the tri-state area? So you are asked constantly. And then if the answer is yes, then there's another series of questions. So there is, especially I think for parents right now, whether you have a kindergartner or a college-age child, there's so much unknown and anxiety over how to travel, but also be respectful in your child's learning environment. That's complicated right now, affecting a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should also say, you have a really interesting perspective because your husband is a doctor who was on the front lines in New York, right, in March and April, and he's of course still working, but so I just think that's an interesting perspective, someone who works in travel, right? And then someone who is really literally there at the center of it all. Tori, what do you think? Your job is to promote travel to the US, now of course it's domestic focused. What do you think about travel shaming?
Much like you said, we have been advocating really from an early point that the quarantine route wasn't necessarily, the most rational from an economic standpoint, right? So, at the original point of the lockdown, obviously everyone adhered to that, but as we've seen sort of that slow, gradual reopening, medical experts have said that it could be possible to travel, and resume, normal activity with the right health and safety guidance in place. And so, we put together health and safety guidance early on, collaborating throughout the industry. We very aggressively pushed the use of masks and physical distancing, sanitation, all of that, because we do know that from an economic standpoint, and we have data that shows that folks have become just as concerned about the economic condition of the country as they are the health crisis of the country. And so, we are very much advocating that, there is a social responsibility. If you don't feel well, you should stay at home. I agree with Brooke as the mother of a young daughter, it is a challenge when it comes to, some of the, we already are dealing with mom shaming in life, that add travel shaming on top of it. And, for us single mothers who work, 20 hours a day, it's like a bad combination. But my daughter loves to travel. She, asked mommy, when can we go on an airplane? And I took her to a hotel over Labor Day weekend, and she was the happiest she's been in months, So in my perspective, as long as we're responsible and doing things in a healthy and safe way that are respectful of our colleagues and our friends and our loved ones and the greater community, then we should be able to be out there, and we should be okay with that, and we shouldn't take it upon others who aren't feeling comfortable doing that. That's okay. Then they can stay in and they can stay home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's almost been a sense, Brooke, you and I talked about it, how it's almost like you can't be happy now for like anything, or like there's the sense like you can't do anything fun, or like you shouldn't show it, right? I think
a hesitancy to broadcast joy is like, they're scared for that. One thing we're actually working on right now is I think people are craving consumer confidence. And so we're working on a new Instagram campaign to show our followers where our people are going, where they're planning, what we're working on in the office, because I'm constantly being asked, is anyone going anywhere? We all need
Well, and I would highlight on that point. I mean, 3/4 of recent air travelers said that they were satisfied with the coronavirus safety protocols that were put in place. And if you talk to some of the individual brands, I mean, the data that they have from the folks that have gone to their hotel or gone to their airplane, or even airport or an attraction. Those that have actually gone out there and done it have felt that it was safe to do so. And I think it's that once you go there and experience it, and Brooke, I'm glad to hear that you're talking about that, because we are, around our Let's Go There campaign, talking about, how do we help folks visualize what the travel experience can actually look like. I mean, it is different, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done safely.
absolutely. And I want to talk much more about the Let's Go There campaign, because I love it. And I think it's really important right now. Stefan, what about you? I mean, you have a different perspective. You lived a long time in Europe. You are European, but you are living in Hong Kong now. I mean, is travel shaming a thing there, or?
To be honest, it's not a thing at all. Okay. I mean, it's a topic where I said, wow, I thought it's about CO2 emissions or whatever. It's, I had no idea what you're talking about. It's not a topic here, right? I think it's a very different perspective and the word responsibility is one that I would want to use to describe in how the thing started over here. When on the 22nd of January in the evening, when I went back home from work here, I noticed that, I take the MTR, the public transportation, and then I noticed that about 20% of the people were wearing a mask. And normally in the winter here in Hong Kong, you have about 1 to 2% people putting on a mask because they have a cold, trying to protect other people. And there was 20%. I'm like, well, okay, I heard about something's going on. And then on the 23rd in the evening, about 50%.
Wow.
24th January in the morning, Chinese New Year, we were on the way for a short vacation in Bali, and everybody was wearing a mask. There was no announcement, there was no guidance, whatever. It was just, I think, the muscle memory in terms of the SARS experience. And we're obviously a very densely populated city, and that was just it. And then Hong Kong never went into what you experienced the lockdown, right? And I mean, we have 8 million people, and we have had 4,000 cases, and we had, yes, a second wave when before mid of March people returned from overseas and brought more infections into, and then a little bit when we were maybe a little bit too loose late July, and then we put restrictions in place, or the government put restrictions in place in terms of how many people can gather and so forth. If I look across the border to China, I mean, there's no travel shaming going on. I mean, this country is going full steam. Yeah, there is no international travel, but our hotels are full. I mean, staycations, travel domestic is the thing, and you just wear masks in public places. And I think the whole way of handling it in terms of when I enter our building, yes, hand sanitization and masks and doing the appropriate things was something that nobody needed to tell.
You didn't
It
need
was
to teach it.
something that
Yeah.
was automatically adopted. And from that aspect, I think at the moment, yes, here in Asia, you pretty much can't travel anywhere other than within your country domestically, because, you know, pretty much the borders are restricted to just welcome residents and citizens back. And I can tell you there is a lot of pent up demand in terms of people want to go and experience and go out, and their least concern is travel shaming. I mean, their concern is about, you know, what are the procedures? I just came back from Europe and I was in quarantine for 14 days. And that prevents me from doing more trips because, you know, every time 14 days and Netflix has only so many.
Yeah. Exactly.
Binge watching that I can do, right? You know, or other streaming things. But I think this is the major thing. It's more a matter of what are the future things that we need to adopt for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And then we'll do it. And then we're there. And I'm not encouraging people to do things that are beyond reason and, you know, do the things that are just wise to do in terms of protecting themselves, but also protecting others. And if you feel unwell, then, you know, if you're not tested and you know, don't do things that you shouldn't do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it'll be interesting. I mean, will it become something where if you do have a cold, I mean, you do wear a mask now from now on, right? Because that's just what we've learned, how to be kinder to people in that way. I mean, I always hated it. I've said this before, but I've always hated it on an airplane when someone's coughing next to me. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you should not have gotten on this plane today. Like, this is not, you know. But I mean, with that, I mean, that's Greg, that's a good time to go to you, because you came back from Rwanda and you sent us 17 pages of notes. And I read them all in detail, and I loved it. I mean, it was like almost it was the most incredible detail. And it's of course not as easy as it once was, but why did you pick Rwanda, first of all?
Well, I mean, it starts with I always wanted to go there, but it also, you know, they have one of the lowest COVID rates in the world. They've had 25 deaths since this whole thing started out of 12 million people. I mean, they've done a great job of containing COVID.
Yeah.
They have great protocols. They just introduced great protocols at the beginning of August for international travel, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And frankly, they want us. You know, they really think travel is important to support their country and support their conservation efforts of their natural resources, like the gorillas. And so I thought, wow, what a great opportunity to go there. I've always wanted to go. They want us, and you know, I took a test before I got on the flight. I took it. When you get there, you actually go to a quarantine hotel where you stay for 24 hours. Well, you actually don't see anybody. You stay in your room. You get a test, and until you get results, what they say you'll get within 24 hours, you stay in your room, and then you travel the country, and everybody's following great procedures. And you know, in the travel industry, they have strict testing requirements on their employees. And then you actually take a test before you leave. They want to see if if something happened on your trip. They want to know about it, and they want to be responsible. And then I got a test when I came back. So I mean, I felt like it was a great experience and so worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, you had some incredible experiences, like you met the president.
Right? I know.
Randomly.
I mean, I had reached out and to a fair number of people, Belize, who couldn't join us today. We maybe talk about that in a second. The head of the Genocide Museum, the head of the dean of African Leadership University, and had some great meetings. But it was just a coincidence. We were at the Gorillas Nest, one and only property at Volcanoes National Park, and president was staying there, and he was the only other guest, actually, him and his family. And yeah, we got to spend 15 minutes with him. It was really great.
That's very cool. I mean, that's like the magic of travel, of course, right? That probably wouldn't have happened in non-COVID times. But I mean, in those moments are, of course, why we travel, these serendipitous moments. You know, Tori, to kind of go the opposite direction, you know, back to the US. I mean, you have been fighting like tirelessly, and as an organization, USTA, to support the travel industry and to push the government, right, to support the travel industry. But one of the things, like we just mentioned before, is the Let's Go There campaign. Can you talk a little bit about that? And, you know, key phrases are like, when the time is right, when the moment arrives, let's make a plan. You're not telling people get going now if they don't want to, but.
Yeah, so I mean, currently our baseline scenario has us not recovering really until 2024, right? And we all know that from an economic standpoint, from a happiness standpoint, for a whole lot of reasons, that's not really a great outlook. And so, you know, we've been, like you mentioned, tirelessly working with Congress. The CARES Act, which was an important relief package, was passed here in late March, but really didn't go far enough. I mean, I have to say, it was a great start, but a lot of folks were left out. Destination marketing organizations, for example, here in the US, just because of the structure of them being, you know, largely structured as a nonprofit. And a lot of other folks that were able to tap into some resources, but that, you know, at the time that it passed, the expectation that it would go, that this would be like still ongoing now was, you know, not something that anybody thought. And so, you know, there was some subsequent legislation that extended an important program, the Payment Protection Program. But now we've still been fighting tirelessly to get additional relief, and ultimately we'll need more stimulus, and it's critical. But what we do know is, while Congress isn't acting as quickly as we would like on these additional phases, we knew that there was work that we were going to have to do as an industry to drive demand for travel. And so, you know, we started, as I mentioned earlier, we put together health and safety guidance that came out, you know, industry-wide in early May. And out of that was born sort of this recovery marketing communications working group on, okay, how do we put together a campaign that can actually help tap into and inspire folks to travel again. And so, you know, we did a lot of important work working with McGarry Bowen and others to develop a campaign that really taps into that anticipation, that, you know, the excitement that comes with just planning a trip, right? And how do you encourage folks to just consider getting back out there again? So we're not saying, you know, let's go tomorrow. We're saying, you know, when you're ready, we're here to welcome you. You know, let's make plans. They don't have to be plans for tomorrow, but just start to embark on that journey. And we actually tapped into a happiness expert, Michelle Gielan, who did some survey work that shows that, you know, 97% of Americans, you know, feel happier when they are planning a trip. And so, you know, the Let's Go There campaign is really an awesome collaboration of over 75 different organizations with, you know, chief marketing organization officers from, you know, the whole spectrum of travel industry. You know, we've got airlines and airports, and you know, we've got credit card companies, we've got hotels, we've got destinations, we've got, you know, all kinds of folks that have collaborated together. And the exciting thing is with the Let's Go There campaign, not only did we start with, you know, a smaller, well, still a large group at 75, we've seen over 2,500 individual unique activations of the creative just over after the first week. And so it's really exciting to see this come alive. I know you have a copy of the video that, you know,
yeah, let me show that right now. Actually, it's just 30 seconds, but I think it's interesting to watch. So I'm going to share my screen. Play it.
Someone once said, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. So let's go there. Let's make some plans. Let's feel that feeling once again as you search and imagine that perfect getaway. Because when the time is right, when the heart says go, we'll be ready. So let's book a trip. Let's aim for the horizon and shoot for the moon. Let's go there.
I love that. And I mean, that picture of Central Park just actually made me tear up. So
I know it. I always get the chills every time I watch the video still. And I think what's exciting is that we've had it, we've got a really robust paid media plan. We were excited to be on the first night of Monday Night Football when that came back. So we aired in both the first and second game. We are all over, different programmatic and different medium. We're up for this month, and then we'll go down during the sort of lead up to the election in October, when it's super expensive and very noisy to be, having paid media. But then we'll kind of come up with the giving the gift of travel leading into the holidays, and then go down over the holidays, but come back up into in January, a new year, a new start, make new plans, culminating sort of this initial phase with National Plan for Vacation Day here in the US, which is on January 26th. And so, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, we actually have people asking where they can get it. And is it on the US travel website?
Yeah, it's on US travel website. And there's also the Let's Go There.travel. Is also the Let's Go There landing page, and you can find out more about those that are involved as well. But it's been really exciting to see that collaboration. And
I certainly would rather watch that than election coverage. So
you and me both, and I'm in politics.
Exactly. Well, Brooke, I mean, I want to ask you more about the happiness stuff too, Tori. But Brooke, I wanted to ask you, I mean, I won't name names, but you have some pretty incredible clients, a lot of them Silicon Valley based, and like you're setting people in the Northeast, but where are they going? I mean, Tori's trying to get people to go. Where are they actually going right now? Where are some of the coolest trips that they're planning?
We've been doing a lot of long-term villas. People taking advantage of the flexibility of work and remote school, and doing kind of a string of a month in Jackson Hole, a month in Aspen, and a month in St. Bart's. So that's been really fun to put together. We have clients, a lot of our main clients who always travel around holiday time, a lot of them are hanging back still, and they're kind of waiting and seeing what's going to happen. But we have a lot, like I'm working on right now, a big booking at a place in Panama, which is a private island with a spectacular house that's in the middle of nowhere and very, very private for a couple weeks over the holidays. So people are starting to, the same clients who were very nervous over the summer to do something with their family, even in the States, are now looking at places like Panama and ready to spread their wings a bit more, which inspires confidence for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you said to me on the phone too, you're like, thank God we charge fees, which I thought was, of course, interesting because, I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? Like how, I mean, it's obviously, you're still, of course, not back to where you were.
Yes.
So.
I mean, like speaking personally, our business is way down from what it normally is. But thankfully, we have not furloughed or laid off a single employee. And that's because we've always charged fees, and we're still charging fees. I've been shouting this from the rooftops for years now. If you are a professional with expertise and you spend a lot of investment in your own travel to become that expert, then your time is worth a lot of money, and you need to preserve that time for clients who value that time. So, the fact that we charge high fees is literally keeping us afloat right now, because clients, for example, I did 30 hours of work for a client in May for a bunch of different ideas for the summer that they didn't end up actually doing, but we still profited from that work I did. So it's very, very important.
So that's not something you just you introduced that during COVID. You always did charge fees.
We've evolved our fees over time. Now we're on an hourly model, where everyone on my team has a different hourly rate. We start off with a retainer, and then I think we'll continue to evolve it in the future.
Okay. I hope you're not going to send me a bill after this call, right, for the hour? I feel even luckier to have you on. No, I mean, that's interesting. And I mean, Stefan, I was thinking just about even Brooke's clients. I mean, the Langham Nymphenburg residence, I think, is one of the coolest openings of this year. I'm working on a story about hotel openings. And could you just talk about that a little bit? It's in Munich and it's a residence, and you guys are really, you're moving forward on residences a lot more than you were, right?
Yeah, when I heard Brooke talking about what she is actually selling at the moment, and I love that the approach with charging fees, and I fully, applaud the fact that we shouldn't be shy about, asking money for what we do and what we've gained in terms of experience. So I mean, kudos to that. And when I listened to her, I was like, we didn't know about COVID when we decided on the Langham Nymphenburg residence in Munich, but it, fits like perfectly. This is a very special property. It's a private residence with about 9,000 square feet of, unique handcrafted world-renowned porcelain in there, a lot of artworks. It's right at the Nymphenburg Castle in downtown, basically Munich. The porcelain manufactory Nymphenburg is the last, manufactory globally that does everything by hand, works together with artists like Damien Hirst and others. And the villa is so luxurious and comfortable, and the privacy is unparalleled in that. And it has 4 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, living rooms. You have dining rooms, you have fitness, a conference suite, a home cinema, all amenities that you have, and you have a private garden, but you're in the middle of basically Munich. And it is for the clientele that Brooke has described. They can afford to basically be a month here and a month there, and they travel on private jets. They're used to charter yachts. And when we developed it, we felt that this is something that is basically a luxury suite on a standalone basis, with all the amenities that a luxury hotel can provide, on top of the privacy that a very exclusive villa can offer. And to be honest, when I walked it the last time in August, I have to say I've never seen anything with the attention to detail like this, and it really is over and above. And well, also the partnership with the porcelain manufactory was quite important for us, because what they do is artwork and handcrafted, and to a certain extent we do the same, but in terms of service. We have a passion for the highest level of quality, whether it's in travel distribution when Brooke serves her client, or when we are basically receiving the clients. And sometimes we as an industry are a little bit too shy to talk about what we're doing. And that combination is actually something that, gives me goosebumps. And yeah.
Well, and that's, and you guys are, I know you, you told me all your secrets before this call. No, you didn't. I'm just kidding. You are doing more in Europe, right? Because we will do a few more residences like this, but they have to be the right properties in the right location with, there has to be a story around, because it's not about another villa that is serviced well. There has to be some more to it in terms of interest, whether it's the location or something special. And yes, if you look at our footprint, we're on 4 continents, but we only had London so far in Europe, and Europe for me is still and will be one of the most important travel destinations, and it has so much to offer. I was driving actually 5,000 kilometers in a car in the last 7 weeks when I was in Europe, and visiting Florence, Venice, Rome, Milan. I was in Berlin, I was in Paris, in London, and you can assume that some of those cities will end up on our list with hotels very soon. Will you go far the? Not sure.
Pardon me?
Will you give AFAR the exclusive?
Well, we definitely have to discuss this. Yes.
Very diplomatic. Tori, could you, talking about, borders being open, all I hear, of course, and all I want is for these borders to be open, of course, between Europe and the US and all around the world. But I mean, how much of that is part of your advocacy work, the borders part?
It's a lot, actually. I had several calls this week with, with the State Department and, Homeland Security and other folks. I mean, there are interagency conversations happening on what are the sort of right protocols that need to be in place to be able to more broadly open, the country. And to where, I would definitely think that, transatlantic, opening in some regard would be sort of the first, after maybe Canada. But I think that, unfortunately, there's still, a lot of questions around what actually needs to be in place. How do you, obviously we've had some inconsistent testing, approaches here throughout the US. We as an organization have advocated very strongly for an enhanced federalized testing protocol that can enable rapid, reliable tests throughout the whole country, because we know that even to get back up and running on the domestic front in a more robust fashion, that would be really meaningful. There are some air bridge concepts that different airports and different ports are being talked about with the government, some pilot programs that are being discussed between the US and the UK and otherwise. So, it is something that we're very much advocating. I think, there's still, unfortunately, quite a bit of work to do in finding out sort of, not only do we have to have sort of the right process in place, but the reciprocal issues with different governments is definitely at play. And I think with the election being now 40 days away, that it will be a challenge to have anything definitive before that point. So we continue to advocate, though, very, very strongly.
I thank you for that. And I'm not going to ask you, when will borders open? But maybe I can ask it this way. Would you be surprised if the Europe borders are still closed next June?
I would be surprised if they're still closed next June.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I can do that. I think it's just the endless nature, the endless uncertainty, right? Which is the worst part of this.
I remember, and this is a silly anecdote, but on Easter morning, I think Andrea Pacelli sang from Italy, from a church in Italy, I can't remember which, and it showed, Paris and London, and obviously we're about US travel and travel to the US, but it showed, different countries, and including New York, and it flashed to all of these important cities throughout the country, the world. And, I started getting teary-eyed, and my little 4-year-old was like, "Mommy, why are you crying?" And I was like, "Because I want to go to Paris, and I want to go to London, and I want to go to New York." And so, it means so much to us, and we have to get back to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My big fear is like that'll, things will still be unraveling 5 years from now, but I hope not. So, Brooke, for you, your clients are starting to travel again. They're traveling differently, but what is giving you hope? Like, what is your part of your survival strategy right now to get through this until these borders are opened? And
oh, well, changes on a daily basis, but I would say, right now I'm spending a lot of time just talking to clients, and regardless of if they're traveling, if they're ready to go anywhere, if they're still at home. And the resounding conversation is, I can't wait. I can't wait. And I think that, we took for granted a long time, the freedom to travel. And now all of a sudden that's been taken away. And we realize what it's worth. And we realize how much of a part of an identity travel becomes when it's woven into you like this. Us travelers are dealing with an identity crisis on top of everything else. Like that demand is so there. People are so ready, and I think it's going to change how we travel when we can. We're going to be more deliberate. We're going to be more grateful. We're more thoughtful, and hopefully just better travelers.
Yeah, and I mean, Greg, you've talked so much about that exactly. I mean, do you think traveling the way you have, like, and Brooke's saying that I love what you said about your identity. It is so much part of our identity. Do you think you gained part of your identity back in a way by going on these trips and discovering things again?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've been traveling domestically a fair amount, in fact, a lot, and there's international, and it is part of. I mean, for me, it's part of the way I live. It's, you know, I get my energy, I get my, you know, it's a part of lifelong learning. It's just part of fulfillment, and you're giving back and you're learning about other people's concerns and their lives, and it's living to me. And when I'm not doing it, it's, you know, I'm certainly willing, you know, during lockdown and all that, I was certainly willing to do that for everyone's safety and all. But, you know, it is part of what I think life is for me. And actually going back to shaming, and I think what Brooke was just saying, I mean, what we hope comes out of this is like people asking themselves, why am I traveling? You know, and is it for something that's worthwhile? And, you know, is it making themselves better, richer? Is it making the world better? And you know, are you supporting the local communities where you go, or all those things that, so you can feel very good about your experience and not be at all ashamed. You're like, no, I feel very comfortable with what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and Stefan, you've said, you know, that you've seen the light at the end of the tunnel because your hotels are full, some of them. And I would
listen to you, you know, sometimes I have to say, you know, you're actually not seeing the light yet, and you're you know, you're viewing the scenario a little bit too negative, right? When I look back, was I too optimistic in March? Yeah, maybe. Okay. In terms of from a recovery perspective. And but if I look at how quickly China has recovered, it is really down to the circumstances. As soon as people will feel safe, that there are, you know, protocols, behaviors in place that allow you to go out and about, you know, we will rebound. And I wouldn't sign up for those 2024, 2025, whatever scenarios, right? You know, I think we will see as soon as either protocols are in place, you know, combination of medication is covered, that people are not afraid of dying as hard as it is, right? You know, then we will see that we will have a resurgence. Will we see some economic effects in suppressing demand? Absolutely, right? You know, I mean, this is a period where people made no money or lost. I mean, if I listen to Brooke's clients, I mean, I'm sure they haven't lost a lot of money, and they will come back, and there will be that pent up demand. And I can only say, listen, we've seen it here, right? We've also seen great creativity from our colleagues in terms of coming up about staycations. When we came up and discussed staycation packages in Hong Kong, initially my reaction, to be honest, was like, I have a bed in Hong Kong. Why would I go to a hotel to sleep in another bed, right? You know, I mean, we are not a big place, but the creativity that has been deployed, not only by our colleagues, but by all of them in terms of coming up with ideas, in terms of setting up education camps for kids, and you know, moving beds into ballrooms to have movie nights in beds, and things that are, you know, just fantastic to create demand and make people, you know, go out and about, but in a safe way. It's just amazing. And I am not afraid at all that we will rebound quickly as soon as circumstances allow. And you know, the quicker we get into that, the quicker we will see a lot of us more back in action.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you also said something too. I mean, your city hotels, which, I mean, some of us in the past few months have said, well, it might be a little bit longer till city hotels come back. Hotels in London are at 10. This time of year, but in China, I mean, your city hotels are booked,
full,
right? I mean, maybe not 100%, but they're.
Look, our hotel in Shanghai is full. I mean, especially over the weekend, and where you have on top of some domestic business travel, you have a lot of leisure, and we have fashion shows from Louis Vuitton going on. We have, everything is happening. So it's not a matter of whether there is demand for those things. It's a matter of are circumstances in place that you can do and you can have them, and then they will happen.
And you were saying there's no limit on how many people can be at an event.
No.
Wow. Is that the same in Hong Kong or?
Now in Hong Kong, we have certain restrictions. They're, basically are very concerned about, as you can imagine, the density here is that we're not talking about thousands in terms of numbers. We're concerned when we have 20 the day before, and then we put restrictions in place in terms of how many people can sit together and dine together and how many people can meet. And but people accept it. Do we like all of those? No, but it's very disciplined.
Well, and that's so Brooke, have your clients lost money? I'm just kidding. That's not the question. But I guess my question, talking about how you're saying, Stefan, people waiting to see what the protocols are. Are your clients looking for that stuff, or do they just assume that it's going to be fine, or how are they asking or talking about those things?
Only 20% of our clients right now, I would say, if that, are even talking about travel, let alone traveling. So we have a lot of New York-based clients, so a lot of people are still hanging back. The people that are traveling have a level of confidence. I haven't had a single client ask me about hotel precautions that are being put in place.
Yeah.
Are being really proactive about expectation management and what to expect and what's going to be closed. And also just reminding that the hotel staff has a laundry list of things that they've never had to worry about before, because service hasn't been the same, and I think clients need to just be thoughtful and empathetic to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just remembered I wanted to ask you about your incubator program for advisors, because you've also made a little bit of a pivot. This was already in the works, but it's something that you've been spending more time on because people are interested in becoming an advisor.
Yes, it's the silver lining of COVID for us. We launched an independent contractor program. We were supposed to launch it in March, and we held off until June officially. But every agency has this, so it's nothing new. We are positioning ours a little bit differently. We have a very strict vetting and application process. So it's not just anyone that's interested. So therefore, we're creating this really professional group of interesting and talented people. And then we have some of the best technology that exists in the industry that we made ourselves, travel advisors for travel advisors, and not some tech bro with a Saturday idea. We have a lot of systems and processes in place. And so we've created this robust training program for new to industry independent contractors. And we have this great network that we've created for people that are much more seasoned. So we are creating this group of, it's all women right now, but it's a place where people really trust each other. And we have everyone from Nancy Novograd, who is this seasoned industry icon, to these really impressive 25-year-olds that are fresh-faced, new to the industry, and really pumped and excited. So it's amazing to see this grow over a depressing time period in our life, but we've brought on 9 more people, so it's awesome.
Wow, that is really cool to see, and to see that, of course, travel is not going away, right? There is going to be a time after this. So, and Tori, you talking about traveler confidence. You guys survey people all the time. What are you seeing in your surveys as far as that? Is it confidence?
Yeah, I think, half of Americans now say that they feel safe traveling outside of their communities, which is up from about 39% 4 weeks ago. And we also have a lot of data that shows sort of with the layering of assurances that gives even greater confidence to the traveler. So, if you've got, a hotel that is clearly communicating the health and safety, guidance that they're implementing, coupled with, local or state government clearly articulating what the rules are, or what the requirements are, that will will really enhance the travelers' ability to wrap their head around, yes, it's safe to go. So again, I think one of the challenges that we have had here in the U.S. with the 50 states and DC and Puerto Rico, et cetera, is that there have been such inconsistent processes that have, also changed at the local level in some states. So you've got, a federal government saying one thing, you've got different states saying different things, and then different localities. And what the traveler wants is a clear communication about what they can expect. And that's really how they can feel more confident to travel. And so that was the original reason we sought the health and safety guidance we put out in May. And we continue to work with governments, with different states and with the federal government to try to streamline things. But obviously, we're in the midst of, the highly political season, and, don't expect that to sort of become a more streamlined approach until after the election. But even then, I still think we'll have, some differing in different states. So, I think one of the things around the Let's Go There campaign that has been sort of flexible and is intended to be flexible is, to be able to encourage folks to make the plans, like I mentioned, but also, it might be different in different states. So some states may say, let's go there within our state. Otherwise, it may be, let's go there, more broadly. And so that's why the campaign's intended to be flexible. But, we will continue, again, as I mentioned, I still think that reliability of rapid testing and reliable testing is something that can make a huge difference as well in the confidence building for travelers.
Well, and are you guys, as you've said, of course, you're not in support of these quarantines. It's not sustainable. And like I said, the European Commission said the same thing. But when you talk about rapid testing, is it a certain test that's already there that's not being used? Is it a 24-hour test? Is it the 5-minute thing? Or
yes.
Are you not?
So, there are definitely some of the, some more tests that are coming, we understand coming online soon in the shorter term that will be, over 90% accurate, that will have, a load like a $5 cost to them, that again will have to be administered still by a healthcare professional, but is something that will be more available. And I think that to the extent that the federal government can help give incentives to encourage manufacturers to ramp up the manufacturing of these tests, and to if we can see them more broadly and more affordably, then I think that goes a long way. Because I think if you have the capability to say, okay, I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to have a test before I go, and the people that are going to be there have also been tested, and you're wearing a mask, and you're practicing health and safety protocols, I think that layered confidence will help folks a lot.
Absolutely. That's responsible travel, right? That's
Absolutely.
right during these times.
President.
Sorry?
Lori Burns for president. You get my vote.
Seriously, we're going to be watching you.
No one wants that job, I don't think, at least I don't.
So I had one question about where's the best place to get information. Tori, what do you think? Is it travel, state, gov, airlines, destination countries give conflicting info? Is there any insight?
So on the Let's Go There .travel landing page, we do have 2 sources that are updated regularly, and then we also link through to sort of each of the state guidance. We also have on that landing page all of the sort of individual brands and what they're recommending for their if you fly Delta and you're staying at a Marriott, you can find out sort of what the best practices and requirements are there. So, that's definitely something to check out. And we tried to do the best we could to kind of put everything in one place. But we'll continue to try to keep that
updated. Pay to travel
is being updated, but even more creative in how we try to communicate the availability of that information. And then hopefully, there'll be more on the federal side in the shorter term.
After the election. So to close out, Greg, I just wanted to ask you, I'm going to ask all of you where you're going next, responsibly, safely, and to have a great time. But Greg, I wanted to ask you, besides the gorillas, what was the one thing that stood out to you about Rwanda?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, it was just, I think the spirit of the country, the rebuilding, they've obviously went through that horrible genocide in 94, and just a real commitment of everyone there to try to rebuild their country the right way. It's just, I mean, one of the simplest things is it was so clean. There's not a piece of litter anywhere in the country. This is the most densely populated country in Africa. And people are just constantly, they don't drop things. And if they do, they pick them up. And I mean, it's just
Imagine.
fascinating culture. Yeah, it's just a really, really great.
Wow. Well, okay. So Stefan, where are you going next?
Yeah, professionally, I hope I can go to China soon and visit actually, my colleagues, our new projects and our hotel, and privately, most likely I will go back to Switzerland for Christmas, visiting family.
Nice. Tori, what about you?
Actually, I just booked my first air trip. We went to the beach 3 times this summer, and we went out to the country once, but all was drive traffic. And we're booked to go to South Carolina over Columbus Day weekend. And I'm taking my 4-year-old, so we will be traveling with our masks and our hand sanitizer. But I'm excited to try it out.
Good. And then you'll want to go again, right? That's what the surveys say. You go
Exactly.
once, you go again. Just got to get over that. Brooke, what about you?
I'm working on a getaway with my husband to the Amman in Dominican Republic right now.
Oh,
Fly in the grandparents to watch the kids. So but I'm working.
logistics. And Greg, I will let you close it out. Where are you going next?
Well, I'm kind of taking this chance to rediscover my home state of California when I'm here. And so this weekend I'm going to Mendocino. Every weekend, basically, I go to a different part of the state, and it's amazing. And then I'm going to go to Arizona the following week and see some friends. And then I'm hoping to go back to the East Coast later in October and see some friends in New York and in May.
Nice. And then London.
Well, as soon as you allow me, without the 14 days.
Exactly. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. And good luck. We'll see you in person sometime soon, right?
Very soon.
Very soon.
Thanks, Annie.
You. Have a good day. Stefan, go to bed. Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Yes, it will be recorded, and I can